Hi everybody! I'm excited about today's video. It's a review I've been wanting to do for a long time. The original Scarface came out in 1932 and is about an organized crime ring's brutal control over Chicago during the Prohibition era. The 1983 remake starring Al Pacino, however, is about a Cuban refugee who becomes a homicidal drug lord in Miami in the early 1980s. How are they similar? What else sets them apart? And ultimately, which one do I think is better? Stay tuned to find out. Before we get into it though, there will be some spoilers about both movies, so here's your warning if you haven't seen them, and if you haven't, shame on you. Boo boo boo. Some quick thoughts on the original film. Scarface 1932 is one of the original gangster movies. It was a pre-Code era film produced by Howard Hughes and directed by Howard Hawks. It is loosely based on the 1929 novel by Armitage Trail, which was inspired by Chicago mobster Al Capone. Now, full disclosure, I have not read the book, and I know that this channel is primarily a book versus movie channel. However, for the purposes of this video, I will only be reviewing and comparing the two films. So if you've read the book, please give me your thoughts on the book in the comments below and tell me how the movies compare to the novel. Fun fact, the film's release was delayed almost a year due to producer Howard Hughes' battle over censorship. Now, for its time, this was one of the more violent films that existed, and Hollywood censors thought that it glorified crime. The movie actually starts with this disclaimer: "This picture is an indictment of gang rule in America and of the callous indifference of the government to this constantly increasing menace to our society and our liberty." The titular character is Tony Camonte, played by Paul Muni. I really liked his performance. He's smug and smarmy and very smooth, and he has some great facial expressions in this movie.
Hey, how's that?
This movie also has some pretty impressive shootout scenes. Okay, now some quick thoughts on the remake. This movie is about an hour longer than the 1932 film, and it is much more violent and obviously has a lot more cursing in it.
What the is wrong with this guy? Am I kidding me or what?
This was actually the first time that I watched this film in its entirety, and I put off watching it for many years because the ending was spoiled for me a long time ago. But I'm really glad that I sat down and watched the whole thing. I liked it way more than I thought I would. In fact, I loved it. It's a lot more epic than I thought it was going to be, spanning many decades of Tony Montana's life. Speaking of Tony Montana, I do think that Al Pacino's performance, while extremely memorable and quite frankly awesome, it does kind of border on overacting.
What the is wrong with this guy? Am I kidding me or what?
But once you get used to it, like I said, his performance is so memorable and iconic that, you forget about it, and, he just really immerses himself in this character.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
So as far as differences between these two films go, the main differences really are, they're big ones, is the setting and the time period and the nature of the illegal business going on. One is bootlegging alcohol and the other one is cocaine. So I've already gone over those. So I actually really want to talk more so about how they're similar. Now, forgive me if a lot of these similarities stem from the book. Like I said, I haven't read it. Both films portray the demise of evil men whose downfall is caused primarily by their own hubris and lust for power. Both films end with the main character surrounded by enemies in their home, and then they both lash out wildly like cornered dogs, climaxing in a wild shootout before the main character is ultimately gunned down. In both films, Tony, the main character, goes after his boss's woman. There's a scene in the original film where Tony is nearly assassinated, but he gets away and he suspects his boss of orchestrating this hit attempt. So he devises this clever way of figuring out whether or not his boss was behind it with a phone call, and that sequence of events and scene is recreated in the remake. In both films, Tony has a younger sister who lives with their mother, and the mother distrusts Tony, does not like him and tells the daughter to stay away from him. Tony loves his sister in both films, but is really overprotective of her. And in both films, Tony's right-hand man falls in love with Tony's sister, and Tony ends up killing his right-hand man when he finds out. So which one do I think is better? In my opinion, I liked the '83 movie better, but the '32 film is also really good. I actually really liked the original 1932 Scarface. I'm not the biggest fan, I will say, of super old movies from like the 30s and 40s. Not to say that there aren't some great ones that were made during that time period, but I went into it thinking like, okay, how much am I really gonna like this? And I actually was really pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. I would highly recommend you checking it out if you've never seen it. Which movie do you like better? Comment below and tell me why. If you like this video, please consider becoming a subscriber. It really helps me out a lot. Stay tuned for more videos in the near future. My next video will be the BFG. I'll be comparing the classic Roald Dahl children's book to the recent Steven Spielberg film. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.
What the f*** is wrong with this guy, man? You kidding me or what?